Here are the final numbers. The Dow lost 389 points to fall back below 12,000. The Nasdaq fell 105 points, and the S&P dropped nearly 47 points.
So it has been a wild few months on Wall Street. We saw some huge losses back in August when the Dow dropped 634 points, 519 and 512 points, all in the space of a week. Well, today's drop is the steepest that we've seen since September, when the Dow lost 391 points. So what triggered the big drop today, and could it be a sign of greater danger ahead for our economy?
Well, joining us to talk about that is Keith Springer of Springer Financial Advisors.
So Keith, what do you think? First of all, thank you for joining us. Is this more jitters today about what's happening in Italy and Greece and those countries not being able to pay their debt, or is there something else that triggered this?
Well, it actually is. It's exactly that, Dale. It's Italy and Greece. It's for years and years of deficit spending, of borrowing for growth, and now it's time to pay the piper. These countries have borrowed and borrowed and borrowed. Italy is over 100% of GDP of growth. You now have to pay it back. And if these countries don't have money for growth, if every dollar spent on debt is not a dollar spent on growth, that slows down everyone's economy. Europe accounts for 25 or 30% of the world economy, and if they buy less stuff from us than everybody else, the whole world slows down, and there's the recession fears we're faced with right now.
Anything you would suggest to folks who are watching all of this today, wondering, okay, you know, France or Italy and Greece having all of these troubles, my 401k is dropping. I guess just sit tight. That's all anyone can do, right?
Well, it's not so much sit tight. It's a great question, because what you want to do is you want to be tactical. The most important thing to do is to focus on the sweet spot. You can't try to time the market to get in or to get out. You want to be in the right investment. So for what we do for our clients is focus on income, dividends, bonds. You can still find yields of 8, 9, 10%. That's where you want to be, so you don't have the wild swings. You don't have the chance of huge losses. You can still make reasonable returns. Invest for need, not for greed, is what I like to say as much as I can.
Okay, how worried though are you about what's happening in Europe and those economies collapsing, and then maybe you wake up early one morning, you're getting ready for work, and you're seeing what the markets are doing in Europe, and you see that domino start to go, and then the markets really fall out here? I mean, what are your concerns about how we might be impacted by what's going on over there?
That's a great question. It's exactly what I write about in my book, Facing Goliath. It's the ultra debt burden all the developed countries have. Everybody's facing with the same problem: demographics, an aging population that spends less. Everybody's over leveraged. Everybody has too much debt in this country and across the world. Eventually it has to be paid back, and the problem you see is you will see banks start to fail, and that's what's going to happen. I don't see that for months, and maybe later off in the year, but that's the biggest concern. Is Italy falls, well, France has about $500 billion invested in Italian banks. If Italy fails and they have to take a haircut, or some of their banks go out of business, that's going to force French banks out of business, and there you see a contagion, sort of that domino effect that everybody's worried about. So it is an issue for down the road, but what investors want to do is focus on the least risky investments possible to get the return they need. Eventually it's going to be a bigger problem, but you can't just sit in cash. You have to be invested, obviously. You can't sit there with no return on the bank. You've got to be invested. Just try to take the least amount of risk so you can sleep at night and not give yourself a heart attack.
Great advice. All right.
Keith, thanks. Keith Springer,
thanks for
appreciate your expertise. All right.